What's going on, guys? Welcome to a very special episode of Renegade Marquee on the Renegade Pop Culture Podcast Network. My name is Mike. I'll be your host for this evening. Joining me is my Jukebox co-host, Nick.
Pretend I have a backwards red Yankees cap on so I can scream this out loud. Woodstock 1999.
And we've got Haley.
I'm opening up the world tool.
I understood that reference.
So tonight we are reviewing the Netflix documentary series Trainwreck, Woodstock 99. This is kind of a spin-off to our series on Jukebox covering the rise and squall of Limp Bizkit. So what's kind of great about this discussion is that we all kind of have our own sort of unique experience with Woodstock. I might be the only one who's like literally the closest to the event. Not that I was old enough to actually go, but that I live pretty much like 20 to 30 minutes from Griffiths Air Force Base. But Nick, I want to start with you. What was your like kind of first exposure to Woodstock 99?
Well, as much as I would love to say I was there, or, love not to say I was there, basically, this is an excuse for me to nerd out about how great Much Music was up here in Canada. Basically, and I just remembered this purely from watching this docuseries again. I remember as a young 5-year-old me being asked by my mom, hey, do you want to watch the Woodstock 99 stuff that's being shown on Much Music, because obviously we wouldn't have been able to go. So what better way to experience it than watch all of the coverage happening on Much Music at the time? And I don't remember exact bits of coverage from it. Obviously stuff on YouTube, I'm glad I've dug up what I've dug up. And yeah, I was around for like all the news coverage, everything down to the riots and what happened. And one of the things we'll bring up later on, I guess we can also pose a second question of who would you see on this lineup if you could. But weird enough, of the three of us, I'm the only one who's seen a lot of the bands that played Woodstock 99.
Out of the lineup, what percentage would you say you've seen?
Maybe about like 30, 35. I've seen Metallica more than once. I've seen them 4 times. I've seen Megadeth twice. I've seen Offspring 3 different times. Let the Bad Times Roll, obviously, thankfully. I haven't seen Korn, shockingly. I have seen Limp Bizkit live once. I've seen the Tragically Hip on their final tour ever. I have seen Seven Dust once. I've seen Our Lady Peace. I've seen Mike Ness with Social Distortion. My mom has seen Dave Matthews Band and Alanis Morissette before. I have not seen the Chili Peppers, and any excuse to take a shot at Creed is a good one. I have never seen Creed live, and I have seen Alter Bridge, so not a band that's played Woodstock 99, but I'll count them just so that way I don't have to acknowledge Scott Stapp.
Fair. Now, Haley, I know you're a big Podcast 99 fan. Before that, what was your first exposure to Woodstock 99?
So when Woodstock 99 happened, I was 8 years old, and this just wasn't music that my parents or my family listened to. None of the stuff was really popular on like my playground either, except for Kid Rock. Kid Rock was a huge deal. Like everyone knew ba wata ba da bang da bang. Like, yeah, of course, 8-year-olds are all into that shit. Of course, it's nonsense. So Woodstock 99, I don't think ever entered my mind at that point in my life. I was listening to Britney Spears. Like there was other stuff going on. I did find out about it after Fire Festival because my brain was like, wow, there can't have been anything else like this. Like that was what I was thinking. I'm like, I know about like crowd control disasters and whatnot, and like things where people died at festivals, but I've never heard of a festival being just this completely this complete of a shit show, basically. So I was Googling, and then I found out about Woodstock 99. And I was like, wow, there was a Woodstock after 69? I didn't even know 94 was a thing. So that kind of put me down that rabbit hole. And when people started doing things like Podcast 99, The Ringer had a podcast. It was like a 6-part one, kind of well before this current Woodstock 99 nostalgia look back boom as well, which I didn't listen to because it cost money. Then I started really getting into just kind of the pop culture anthropology of Woodstock 99. Like the event as a whole fascinates me because it's just every wrong decision you could possibly make. Like, I'm not going to pretend I'm an elite event planner on the level of making a festival for 200,000 people. But, you know, I do some stuff like this for work and have in the past. And it's like, even the basic stuff like, you know, where are the bathrooms? Are there bathrooms? How are the rooms set up? Like, these are all basic things. And it seemed like Woodstock 99 failed them so spectacularly that I felt like I just had to be fascinated by how weird this whole thing was. It's also kind of a world that I was never really a part of, and still not really. Like, I listen to as much music as I can, and I like branching out and learning new things, but metal and new metal and kind of harsher music in that vein is something that I'm not super familiar with, and I'm trying to get more familiar with. But just, it's interesting to see how much of that subculture played into the media coverage of this event, how much that subculture fed into this event as well. So unlike Nick, I think I figured out I've maybe seen one person on this bill, and it was Elvis Costello, and I'm pretty sure that's only because I saw Diana Krall live, and she's married to him, and I'm pretty sure I was at a show where she brought him out for a song or two. So musically, I don't have a whole lot of insight to offer on the performance styles of some of these bands, but that's kind of where I'm coming from here. Everything about how this complete clusterfuck went down is endlessly fascinating in a kind of watching a car crash kind of way to me.
Fair. Like, now my real question to all of us: who would you go see on the Woodstock 99 lineup if you could, dead or alive in this case?
Dead or alive, obviously Metallica. They are like pretty much the ultimate bucket list band. Metallica, Rage Against the Machine, probably Limp Bizkit. I almost got the chance to see them 2010. They were the headlining act for one of the K-Rockathons, but we left before their set began, so I unfortunately missed out on that.
Haley, how about you?
I'd say, well, Above and Beyond, just because he's dead now, and it's like, it would have been nice to have seen him in his prime. DMX.
Yeah, that was going to be my pick.
That's the classic standout set from the entire Woodstock 99 weekend, if you're talking to people just about quality on a quality level. I'd love to see the Brian Setzer Orchestra. I probably could go do that pretty reasonably and cheaply, so I'm like, why haven't I done that? Would love to see Metallica too. I've been trying to see Muse for a long time. It just never pans out. They were on the emerging artist stage. Would love to see Alanis Morissette. That's another one I've been trying to get to, just with money and dates. It just doesn't seem to be working out too well. I am really hoping that Rage reschedules for Coachella next year, because I was very, very excited to see them this year, and then they dropped out because of was it the drummer's injury or the singer's injury? Someone like straight up broke their leg or something.
Yeah,
which sucks.
It was Zach's leg, the vocalist. Haley already mentioned DMX, so I have never seen the Chili Peppers live, so I'm just for something different. I'm going to go with them, even though they're probably not going to play stuff off of Mother's Milk or One Hot Minute. Any chance to hear songs off of Blood Sugar Sex Magic, I'd take my chance to finally hear Give It Away or Suck My Kiss live, or Under the Bridge even, which we'll be getting to that song momentarily. But yeah, DMX or the Chili Peppers are probably my two picks. Let's start tearing into this documentary, just because my thing that I really wanted to avoid doing this with you guys. I don't want this to just be a rehash of Podcast 99 or this documentary, even, just because it's like, look, you have these sources out there. There's no need for us to regurgitate any of this. So let's just talk about how good this documentary is, and just recommend everybody go look up Podcast 99, which we'll be mentioning a lot and probably may inadvertently make references to throughout.
Oh yeah.
Like me opening with the whirlpool.
Yes, exactly. Now, you guys ready to do some tight crowd surfing on the plywood?
Let's do this.
I'm so excited to throw all my garbage on the floor and dance with the mud Nazis.
That's not mud, though.
Here's where I want to start with the story. We literally have to start at the top with the two, I guess, godfathers of this whole event. The story literally begins in 1969 with Michael Lang, who is the founder of the Woodstock Music and Arts Festival. And then we meet the villain, John Shear. Nick, I'll ask you first. On a scale from 1 to 10, how badly do you want to punch him in the face?
How many times do I want to punch him in the face, especially for some of the shit he says in both documentaries that are available to the public?
Get in line.
Oh, yeah. Like, oh my God. Just moral of the story, kids. Don't grow up to be John Shear. I mean, like, here's my thing that I do kind of understand the mentality of going into this. And before we really proceed any further, I was just going to say, I'm probably the best dressed because I don't have any Woodstock 99 merch or any Limp Bizkit merch, but I've got a Metallica shirt with with one of the tour dates from 1994. And guess what it is?
Woodstock 94.
Exactly.
Nice.
So that is the perfect transition into my point. So Shear's entire mentality is that Woodstock 99 had to turn a profit because of really how many issues Woodstock 94 had, and really just Woodstock in general having so many issues in general as is, because some people would even argue that 69 was just as big of a disaster as 99. Just, go on Wikipedia, kids. You can literally look up all of the issues that happened with Woodstock 69. But with 94, there's obviously the mud situation, the fact that it just kept raining and that the gates came down and people were sneaking in for free. Like, I don't necessarily hate the mentality of we have to hold a festival that's going to make sure that we turn a profit. Like, that's not bad in concept.
In a vacuum, it's a pretty reasonable goal for any.
It's common sense.
You
can't run something at a loss for multiple years. It makes sense. Like 94 didn't turn a profit. The goal is, okay, we did some stuff right. Let's turn it around. Yeah.
The problem is that what they did is like fundamentally against the original spirit of Woodstock.
Yeah,
and we'll get into that more as the weekend proceeds.
Yeah, because we're just gonna basically just break this down episode by episode. One of the things that I really love about this documentary, though, we get to know people who attended and work behind the scenes. And like, one of the things I even mentioned to Mike and a little bit Haley in our group chat that we have, one of the things I really love about this documentary, we get to know these people as people. Like, they're almost like characters in a story. They're just that much fun to watch and hear them talk. Like, they've even got Ananda Lewis, one of the MTV VJs, to do interviews across all three of these episodes. She's fucking great in this. And one of my favorites, she's like the coolest mom on the planet, Heather. and even Podcast 99 interviews her. I'd love to hang out with her and just be like, hey, so hey, let's go see Korn together.
I think something that's also worth bringing up about this documentary is that I think people might be coming into our podcast being like, okay, well, there was an HBO documentary. There's one that Paramount's working on right now. There's a bunch of podcasts, a bunch of retrospectives, which is weird that they're happening like now because the 23rd anniversary of an event is kind of an odd time to do all this. But the point is there's a lot of media out there about Woodstock 99 at this point in time. And the great thing about this documentary is on top of having those interviews and these kind of personalities talking about this event is that there's a lot of footage in this documentary that for one thing has been remastered beautifully. Like this doesn't look like it was shit recorded on someone's camcorder in the middle of a war zone, which is what most of this footage was. It looks really nice and scaled up, but it's also a lot of footage we don't have or didn't have. There's scenes of actual discussions about what corners need to be cut while they're making this event in episode 1. There's footage of the mythical rave tent that no one knows fucking anything about, and huge sections about the rave tent that we'll talk about later. There's plenty of unseen crowd footage that comes from this too. Like there is a lot of really like new ground kind of being tread in this documentary from a footage perspective, because there's not a whole lot of new ground to tread with the narrative. Like everyone kind of knows at this point, you know, John Scher had a mentality of profit at all costs. We need to make some money regardless of what that ends up meaning. Michael Lang, the worst event coordinator I've ever seen in my life, and just kind of goes, oh, I don't understand why everything fell apart. It's like, because of you, dumbass. Like you should have done something. Everything starts falling apart pretty instantly because it's 1,000 degrees outside. There you throw a bunch of people on a tarmac that has no shade. You gouge them for food and water. People keep passing out. And then you give them a soundtrack that's going to heighten their emotions. And then you eventually treat these kids so badly that they snap at the end of a weekend. And then you give them fire to take out their burning rage with. Like everyone knows the general story. But this documentary gives us a lot more context and a lot of footage and connects a lot of dots that haven't really been connected before. So that's kind of a huge standout of this documentary.
And I like the fact that this is it's like a 3-part docuseries, so that each episode is devoted to each day of the weekend. That gives you plenty of real estate to kind of go through the events as thoroughly as possible. And like Nick said, all of like the talking heads in this were people who were like actually primary sources.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and to add to what Haley was mentioning earlier, I told Mike this, and especially just realizing that it's a Netflix series as well. I really compare this documentary in terms of like having on the ground footage that people shot on their camcorders back in 99. I compared this documentary to The Last Dance in that it really does take this old footage and makes it look almost brand new. Like you can obviously tell it was shot on a camcorder in 99, but it's just great to see some of this footage, and it just adds this authenticity to it. And that's one of the things that I really love about it, is that it's authentic to what is happening as it is happening, and we're just slowly getting the facts dished out as we know it. Like obviously this is where I gotta warn some people from here on out. We're gonna be describing certain events that are evil. And I don't mean like, oh, I drew a cartoon devil evil. I mean like despicable evil.
If you have a sexual assault trigger of any kind, you should probably just kind of skip this episode. We love you, but keep yourself safe, you know?
Yeah, no need to traumatize yourself, especially knowing what we're about to eventually discuss, especially once we get to the episode about day 2, especially.
Mhm.
I guess what are some of the standouts of the first episode for you guys? I really feel like it sets the stage and kind of gets you in the mood the way the concert goers were back then.
I really love the score in the scene that introduces John Shear. The background music actually kind of turns a little bit sinister once like Shear starts talking about his intentions behind this event. It's just kind of one of those perfect little touches that really go well with everything else.
One of the other things that I really love is just that it does get you hyped up for what artists they're going to talk about next throughout all 3 of these episodes. Like, it literally makes you feel like you're part of the crowd getting excited to watch these bands or artists play live.
I think something that this episode does that I don't think a lot of the coverage of Woodstock 99 in the past does really well too is we'll talk more about how a lot of the media coverage disproportionately focused on Limp Bizkit and their quote unquote contributions to what ended up happening. But this documentary really has excellent footage of what I would argue is probably the most brutal looking set I have ever seen on a video, and that's the Korn set. Like, the guys look like they played their ass off, but there's definite video where they zoom out and there is a mosh pit that seems to be a mile deep, and people are literally disappearing up and down on the screen, and you're just like, oh god, you know.
It
Looks deeply terrifying.
So,
but it
no
really
lie.
conveys the sense of like, oh, things are starting to go a little off the rails in the audience, even on day 1. And I also appreciate that they follow that up with the poor guy from Bush who seems to get left off of literally every single recap of Woodstock 99 because, like, who stayed after Korn, I guess. And they were the fucking headliners. And it was interesting to hear his perspective of like, yeah, apparently, or of his perspective being like, yeah, we got completely lost in history. And at the moment from that, it was just a bad setup. It was a bad time. So it was interesting to hear that too.
Great point you brought up. And I was actually going to say, no lie. When I was watching this, and I know which part of the Korn show you're talking about, the part during Blind where they do the ride cymbal intro, and then Jonathan Davis does the "Are you ready?" They really do. Again, they really do get you stoked for the band the way the crowd is. But literally, when my mom walked in the room, because she had watched it like right as it came out. I watched it when I got home from work that day. She literally walked up right next to me as I'm watching this on the TV, and then she's like, I would be scared shitless.
Same.
Like I have been in the wall of death. I have moshed. I have crowd surfed. That looks fucking dangerous. Like the way people are moving in that first after the "Are you ready?" bit, the way people are jumping up and down, that's not normal.
It's interesting because there was actually recently on the Coachella subreddit a general discussion question because sub has to stay active when there's not a festival going on. And it was, what's the worst festival you've ever been to? And someone from who went to Woodstock 99 actually commented in there and said that the Korn set was the most dangerous set they've ever been in. And they were pretty sure they were going to die while they were in it. They felt like they were being lifted like feet in the air every time something happened. And they literally escaped by diving headfirst into a sound tower. And at that point were able to outrun security when they got into the tower and just ran as far as they could until they were as far away from Korn as humanly possible. Wow, and I feel like that really conveys like the imagery in the documentary also really conveys the sense of like, oh, that's not good. People aren't supposed to move like that.
Yeah, especially just once we get into the sketchier content of what people are doing, especially what the guys are doing to the girls in the crowd as they're trying to like either crowd surf out of there to begin with, and they're fucking groping them, like the disgusting shit like that.
One thing I do want to say about this documentary, and it's like the most minor quibble you could have about something like this, but I wish they had woven more commentary about the treatment of women, particularly in the first episode. I feel like they do a good job of it in the second and especially the third, because the documentary ends with a discussion of the just sheer overwhelming amount of sexual assault and groping and violence against women that is happening the entire weekend. But it started from the get-go. It was always a part of Woodstock 99 as it was amplifying, and something that doesn't get talked about in this documentary. And I think this was a conscious choice because they also chose to skip talking about some of the deaths that occurred from dehydration and such in this documentary, was that there was a absolutely brutal gang rape that happened in that mosh pit during Korn. And it was one of the 4 reported sexual assaults, and people were arrested. And it was something that traumatized a lot of people at that event. People who were watching, people who were trying to stop it, the woman, obviously, who was raped. But I feel like there wasn't, in this first episode, and I'm sure it's to create a sense of escalating terror going on. So episode 1 starts, okay, you know, things are starting kind of weird, but we're okay. But it's like, I wish they had noted that, like, the vein of misogyny went through the entire event. You know, they do a good job of acknowledging it in the other episodes, and I don't think it's a failing. They handle it much better than the HBO documentary, which seems to think that the mere presence of Fred Durst caused men to start raping people, which is a very strange argument. And I don't like Limp Bizkit.
I'll get to that when we get to day 2.
Yeah. It's when I say it's very minor, but to me it's important to know, to say, not like, oh, things started escalating as it got hotter. It's like, no, there was a powder keg of that going on the entire time. Same with the heat, same with the bad toilets, same with the lack of water, you know.
I guess just with that, how about we transition into day 2, the big one, as the intro to podcast 99 puts it, Saturday mega day at Woodstock.
I love the episode, like the title of this episode, Kerosene Match Boom,
which pretty apt. So one thing I mentioned to you guys, and I did this, I want to say about a week ago before we wanted to do this episode. So to prepare for this, I watched all of the day 3 big bands. So day 3's big bands that everybody seemed there to see were at about like 8 o'clock in the evening, Limp Bizkit, about like 9:30-ish, Rage Against the Machine, then about maybe 10:30, 11-ish, Metallica. So one thing that I kind of very poorly hinted at. So some of you are probably already aware there was an HBO documentary about Woodstock 99, and this might be a little hyperbolic to say, but in all honesty, I might consider that one of the worst documentaries I have seen, especially just given how much I feel it really is just an hour and a half long hit piece against the metal bands that played when you get down to it, because like Haley was alluding to, a lot of it just acted like just the mere presence of Fred Durst playing Woodstock 99 was what caused it. Like most of that documentary really is just, I get on paper that, you know, the pitch is Woodstock 99 gets planned out. It's a mess. Limp Bizkit plays break stuff. Riots happen. But there's a lot more to it than just that. And I really just feel like, especially just with how much of a presence that it's mostly just either Spin magazine writers or New York Times writers that weren't even fucking there.
That's the biggest problem with the HBO documentary. Like, it 100% had an agenda, and it was very less interested in covering the event and more it's at the end of the day revealed to be like a very unsubtle ad for Coachella.
No offense to Haley and her love for Coachella.
Well, yeah, like I think Coachella for me is a great thing. Not everything works for everybody. And also that documentary, regardless of how it's like, Coachella is great. And I'm like, I agree with that. I don't agree with blaming the widespread sexual assault at this venue and this in this festival on a dude who played for 50 minutes on the middle of day 2 before any large scale rioting started. And frankly, it's disrespect. The HBO documentary is extremely disrespectful to the people that got gouged and treated like animals in an effort to make a profit. Like a lot of that documentary feels like John Scher trying to cover his ass, which to its credit, a lot of the reviews and media when that documentary came out pointed out how ludicrous a lot of the shit John Scher was saying was. I think this documentary does a good job of interviewing Scher, the Netflix one does a good job of interviewing Scher, but then bringing in a lot of perspectives to counteract and or completely denounce the things he's saying.
I had to check Wikipedia just to make sure that Scher wasn't like a producer on the HBO documentary, and thank God, as far as I know, he wasn't. But still,
I also think episode 2 of the Netflix one is good to demonstrate some of the crack that aren't Scher or Metal Hit Piece related in the HBO documentary, because the HBO documentary will bring up points and don't seem to go anywhere. There's kind of like there's a lot of misogyny in the air. I wonder what that could be about. Fred Durst. It's like, no, Fred Durst, God, shut up. And one of the things that they specifically bring up in the HBO documentary and go nowhere with is that the MTV crew that's on the ground interviewing people and dealing with all of the people who have bought tickets to this are very, very hostile to the MTV VJs and such. And we don't have any interviews from anybody with MTV in the HBO one. And it just kind of amounts to they wanted to show footage of the Offspring beating up paper cutouts of the Backstreet Boys. And it's like, yes, that's kind of a weird fucking thing to do. And looking back on it, you know, there was a lot of problems with how the media portrayed a lot of, you know, bands that girls and women liked. It's an evergreen problem. We have the same problem now with the boy bands that are coming up. But they don't make that connection. They just show you some footage and then are like, oh, and let me show you some other weird demonic thing. Or let's talk about how many white people said the N-word during DMX. The HBO documentary makes no sense, honestly, if you're trying to follow a logical through line of points. Now, the Netflix documentary, because we have a VJ from MTV, this lady is actually telling us, yeah, these people viewed us as the enemy because they thought we weren't showing their stuff that they wanted to see, when that was a ridiculous thing to think, when this was almost all we showed. If we weren't showing it, we were showing the stuff they were mad at, but it was about 50-50. Like, what can you do? So you have the perspectives of the people that were there that help illustrate, like, this is why this happened. This is another layer of why people are tense. There are people on the ground from MTV that people who are already paying $10 for water and are underfed and drunk didn't want to deal with in the first place. Sorry, I cut you off like 5 times, Nick. I just wanted to get that point.
No, you're all good. And everything you said is dead on the fucking money. I was actually just going to bring up, you know, just to kind of just mention this other point and then transition into another one like I usually do. One of my other issues, and I mentioned this to Mike even, it just goes on so many goddamn tangents. Like I'm going to bring up 3 ultimately. So my first one is just the dick sucking of Nirvana's corpse, acting like they were the most revolutionary band of the fucking 90s and they were the only rock band that existed and mattered. And it's like, you guys are so against the idea of heavy music that you're willing to write off bands like Pantera, who, if Pantera didn't exist, we wouldn't have bands like Lamb of God, Machine Head, Fear Factory. And if we didn't have the Norwegian black metal scene, we wouldn't have things like Enslaved, Behemoth, Wolves in the Throne Room. And then same thing with the melodic death metal stuff like At the Gates and In Flames. We wouldn't have the entire metalcore scene, the new wave of American heavy metal. Like, not to dismiss Nirvana's influence on music at that point, but to act like they were the only band and act like they had this social cause to them. And I don't want to wind up sounding like some virgin crying about people of color being in a Lord of the Rings or Star Wars series, but the entire thing just kind of felt very social justice warrior-y to me.
Yeah, I kind of felt that same energy too.
Yeah, and then to add on to my point about it being a hit piece against metal, I wouldn't have so much of a problem of it mentioning Coachella if it was just like, hey, Coachella was a festival that happened, and then mention some other festivals that would happen later, like Fucking Open Air, Bloodstock, mention even Glastonbury if you want to throw in something more alternative, throw in Lollapalooza coming back in 2003. Like, if you want to show like a wide perspective, that's fine, but you don't have to do it by just having a 20-minute Coachella ad at the end of your documentary that's supposed to be about Woodstock. And then the random bitching from Dave Mustaine about getting kicked out of Metallica and mentioning the whole Napster controversy that had nothing to fucking do with Woodstock. That wasn't even until a year later, which I'm not going to get into the reasons why the Napster debacle happened. Lars was right, just saying. But no, it really did just feel like a hit piece against metal. And I'm gonna use this to bring up a really good point. So obviously, two of the biggest touring festivals are at this point in the 90s are Warped Tour and Ozfest. So I'm literally going to mention all of the bands that played Ozfest 1999, the exact summer Woodstock 99 is happening. And I would personally argue this is a way more aggressive lineup, which I really do find the argument of having all of these heavy bands play this festival and kind of having a mix of them with some of the lighter artists. I kind of find that to be a bad faith argument when literally this lineup exists. You guys ready?
Go.
And also, before I really tear into it, I had to pick this venue out since this is a really 90s themed episode. Guess what the name of the venue is?
Oh, is this the Blockbuster?
Fred Durst Community Center.
No, it's 1999 as that would be. I told Mike this earlier. No, it's called the Blockbuster Pavilion.
Yeah, that is very 90s.
I was so
Yes.
close.
So the bands we have from Ozfest 99 that I argue are heavier than the majority of Woodstock 99. We have Head PE, the original lineup of Black Sabbath, Deftones, Fear Factory, Godsmack, who also played Woodstock 99, Primus featuring Buckethead on guitar, Puya, Rob Zombie, Slayer, Static X, two little lesser known bands. I don't really know if they went anywhere or did anything. Maybe they're kind of heavy, sort of. They're called fucking Slipknot and System of a Down.
They'll get there someday.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's like, look, Slipknot are literally advocating their crowd to beat the shit out of each other in the pit, and no riots happened at any dates on Ozfest 99. Same thing goes for fucking Wacken Open Air that same summer, which was literally about like a week after Woodstock 99 had happened and has nothing but extreme metal on it, like Enslaved, Napalm Death, Immortal, In Flames, Amon Amarth. Like, those are just a couple of Jimmy Borgir, Cannibal Corpse, Dark Tranquility, amidst power metal bands like Ed Guy. I mean, to say that just having a mix of all these eclectic artists and then sprinkling metal bands in there is what caused Woodstock 99, I just think is a bullshit argument.
Couldn't
I
agree
do
more.
think it is. And there are definitely criticisms to be made of the lineup of Woodstock 99. Like, the fact that there were 3 whole women the entire weekend,
Each
one per
on
day.
one day.
And that is why Podcast 99 calls Sheryl Crow, Jewel, and Alanis Morissette the Queens of Woodstock 99, a title I bet they really don't want any association with, but I'm sure if they were told that, they'd appreciate the compliment and smile politely.
Yeah, I think Sheryl Crow would do everything in her power to destroy all footage of Woodstock 99 if she could. She hates it more than anyone on earth, I think, including John Scher. But there are criticisms that you can make of the lineup. I don't think the heaviness of it really matters, because at the end of the day, again, you locked 200,000 teenagers to young adults on an airplane tarmac at a decommissioned military base in 100-degree weather with $10 bottles of water, beer that was cheaper, and food that was so prohibitively expensive that no one ate it, and fecal matter everywhere. So
Yeah.
you could throw like fucking Coco Melon and, you know, the poppiest girl groups you can think of up there, and they probably would have started a riot.
Yeah, exactly. So I mentioned I watched. Yeah.
Sorry. I also want to point out one thing that I wish this documentary covered was the staggering amount of money they threw at some of these bands, which I also think is a legitimate complaint that should have been more brought up in this. Like, Insane Clown Posse has a fan base. Clearly, you know, the Juggalos exist. People enjoy their music. In 1999, are they worth $100,000 money, especially knowing that there were not enough portalets, showers, or water for people who were going to the event?
Absolutely
Probably not.
No.
Yeah. And that's for a band that was, like, if we were looking at a festival lineup today, would be on like the 6th of 8 lines. So I do wish the documentary, the Netflix one, had gotten more into that aspect of how this lineup was created.
Yeah, that's completely fair. So one more thing before we get away from this turning into a review of how bad the HBO documentary is. Since I have watched all 3 of the big 3 bands that played day 2, they honestly do have a segment in that HBO documentary where they try to pin my favorite band, Metallica, for the death of a fan at that. Okay, so let me get this straight. You want to blame arguably the biggest heavy metal band of all time for playing a music festival with bad infrastructure, little access to clean drinking water, and gouging the shit out of them in plus 30 heat. Sorry, I don't know Fahrenheit, so that's probably mild for you guys. So
no, that's what I've been saying. It's 100 degrees Fahrenheit. That is I grew up in a desert, and that's normal for a desert. So it's not normal for most places.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you're going to blame Metallica for playing a festival where most of the people were in that, and somebody died of hypothermia during their show. Like, one of the things I really do wish they would have had more than just one clip of Kirk Hammett calling out the commercialism of this festival. I really do wish they would have talked more about how great Metallica were, because I'm not even just saying this because they're my favorite band and I literally have their ninja star tattooed on my leg. Like, their set is fucking fantastic. They sound great. They play great. They play pretty much mostly stuff from Kill 'Em All to the Black Album, but like even the songs they play off of Load and Reload, and the one that they do play off of Garage Inc. Actually 2. I didn't count the Die Die My Darling because that's a heavier one than Turn the Page, but most of their set I'd personally argue heavier than Bizkit's. But the thing that I noticed and pointed out to Mike, nothing that rowdy happens during Metallica's show, and nothing really massively eventful happens.
Yeah, I've heard you describe this set as like they just came in, played their songs, said a few like thank yous or how you doing tonight, and then left.
Pretty much. I mean, like James Hetfield really does a lot of crowd work, but I mean, I think even him and Zach De La Rocha from Rage Against the Machine, like both bands, I think both of them saw what happened. We might as well just tear straight into Bizkit's show. I think both bands really saw what happened during Limp Bizkit and just went, we gotta work this crowd better. Because the other thing you gotta realize about Durst, he's at least 28 years old playing this festival, and they're a brand new band who literally just had their first big album. Like Significant Other is only a month old at this point, really. So like Korn even had existed like well before 99, so it's like they had that time period. And plus even to go back to day one with DMX, like he's still a brand new artist, still just touring behind It's Dark and Hell Is Hot and Flesh of My Flesh, Blood of My Blood. Like even he knows how to work the crowd properly. Like the Chili Peppers really do, and I'll probably mention this in our Rise and Squall of Limp Bizkit series. This is something that would happen to Bizkit again. Like I think I might have mentioned this to you at one point, Haley, but basically there's a festival in Australia called Big Day Out, which also eclectic lineup, metal, alternative, hip hop, electronic, everything played because it's Australia. So basically, you can even pull this clip up on YouTube. I'm not going to get as into it as I will in our Results May Vary episode. But what happens is Limp Bizkit go on and play, and Fred Durst will not stop the goddamn show because everybody's bum rushing the rail, and a girl in the crowd died at that show.
That's basic shit. Like, I went to a K-pop show with 200 people at it, and people started rushing the stage, and a band that was 2 months old from another country that did not speak the language knew to tell people to back the fuck up.
Yeah. So the thing that I'm going to be the weird one out in this. No, obviously Fred Durst is not responsible for Woodstock 99 and all the bullshit that happened. And honestly, you hired Limp Bizkit to play a Limp Bizkit concert, and they do a pretty goddamn good job for the most part. The problem is a lot of the wording. So, Mike, I mentioned this to you when we were listening to Significant Other for our episode. There are some lyrics that are coming back to bite Durst in the ass from that record.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like on Just Like This, he literally says, "It ain't fake when we start the riots." Like they obviously wrote that song not knowing that riots were going to start at one of their concerts a month later, but because like these songs are engineered to get the crowd energetic. And like even on 1999, him going, "As the audience grows, security knows stopping me now is kind of serious." Like, and plus just some of the general phrasing I'm finding, like there's one part Podcast 99 pointed out that I think they like tacked on to the beginning of Stuck, which was and this is the part that annoys the shit out of me. And I really was like, would a heavier band like maybe Pantera, if they had this same stage spot and had the crowd getting this cause the amount of damage that Bizkit did? I was like, yeah, but Phil Anselmo, as much of an idiot as he can be, doesn't literally go out to the crowd and say, "Hey, they're saying a lot of people are getting hurt and they want us to tell you to mellow out. Don't let nobody get hurt, but I don't think you should mellow out." To a crowd that is deprived of water, food, and has been baking in heat.
Yeah, that's a pretty damning line right there.
Yeah, Fred Durst isn't responsible for riots, but he sure as shit is responsible for the amount of insanity at his own set. I really appreciated that the Netflix doc actually showed why his sound was turned off in this set, and it's completely understandable. People started ripping plywood off of the sound tower to crowd surf on it, and Fred Durst is like, "That looks dope. You should keep doing that." And
That's some
the
tight
sound
shit.
tower
That crowd
guy,
surfing on the plywood.
yeah, whatever his exact words were, it was basically like, yeah, keep doing that. And the guy in the sound tower is like, I'm afraid for my life because if they start ripping off the metal, I die. So he turned off the fucking sound. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. And they're interviewing the actual sound guy, which was awesome for that perspective. And it kind of validates like most of the stuff that happened during Woodstock 99 was just an inevitable conclusion to the stimuli there. You start ripping apart a sound tower, person turns off sound because fuck you, he wants to live. And he hears Durst saying shit like, well, you know, they want you to mellow out. We shouldn't listen to them. It's like, oh my God, bro. Like there's a reason I haven't been on these Rise and Squall podcasts. It's because I very deeply dislike Limp Bizkit. But I won't blame them for this entire event. It's not their fault. But God, is Fred Durst an absolute douche.
One of my favorite lines in this documentary is one of the security guards saying like, you can't blame Limp Bizkit for being Limp Bizkit. It's like blaming a bear for being a bear.
Yeah, and one thing that I really appreciate about this, and Haley, I don't even think I brought this up to you. They actually were supposed to get Fred Durst for this documentary even.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
That would have been super interesting.
Yeah, like one of the things I do appreciate at least, and I recognize them from all those MTV clips, just binging them for our Rise and Squall series, is that they at least, even if they don't get Durst, they at least get Limp Bizkit's manager to at least kind of be like, okay, I'm gonna at least stick up for them, because like I even remember him basically sticking up for the band during that whole Rogue tour that they did, the Renegade tour that they did, just playing on like rooftops of buildings in random cities, and then him basically just defending them from getting arrested by the cops, like acting almost as their lawyer. Even one part of me kind of would have to imagine something behind the scenes of like, because Durst has gone on record in interviews saying something to the effect of like, there were cops who actually wanted to talk to me after the show for, quote, inciting a riot, which again, podcast 99 kind of put it great, is that I kind of imagine that that manager of theirs probably said something like, okay, where's your warrant? But like, no, this isn't happening.
Yeah, this documentary also doesn't center Limp Bizkit in it, which is nice, because Limp Bizkit was not the center of this event, was not the culmination of this event. And honestly, I think if people hadn't started ripping shit off of a sound tower, I don't think people would really be thinking about that or be thinking of them in that way. Well, that and Break Stuff. But when you write a song called Break Stuff, you're just kind of asking to be blamed for shit that you didn't do.
Yeah, again, that song
like
is
every
literally...
venue you play Break Stuff in, the venue is going to be like, oh shit, what if they start breaking stuff? It's like, why would you do such a thing?
There's a really great meme I shared to you guys of a dog living through what looks like a Vietnam War with a backwards Yankee cap on, just looking depressed. And it just says in the caption, Woodstock 99 attendees, whenever they hear Break Stuff by Limp Bizkit on the radio 20 years later. It's like, I should not laugh at this, but no, like that song is literally just engineered for people to fuck shit up to. And Lars Ulrich from Metallica has a really great quote, and I'm not gonna exactly 100% get it down, but it's like, he says something to the effect of, you don't tell an already rowdy crowd to fuck shit up. They're already doing that for you. You don't throw more gasoline on that fire. And again, this documentary really does a great job of, again, getting you psyched for Bizkit. Like the HBO documentary acted like it was such a negative that Durst was getting people jumping up and down during their cover of Thieves by Ministry. And I'm like, nobody show these motherfuckers clips of Slipknot playing Spit It Out at download. Otherwise, they're going to literally have a fucking heart attack.
That's really the thing I appreciate about this documentary, is that in certain moments, you really do feel like you're at the festival, like the countdown clock that shows up is a really nice touch too.
So
Now,
to quote Fatboy Slim from this documentary, actually not quote, I'm going to paraphrase him. This is the part of the podcast where we edit in one of those sub bass drops that goes boom. Because guys, if we warned you earlier on that shit was going to get dark, the rave tent. Haley,
rave
I'm going to let you have the floor on this one because I nerded out about metal and Bizkit and Metallica. So you have the floor.
okay, so important context going into the Netflix documentary. The rave tent is so mysterious, and I say mysterious as in we don't have information about it, that until this documentary, we didn't know Fatboy Slim played in the rave tent. We don't know who played in the rave tent unless they've said it. So we know Moby did. There are a few DJs that Podcast 99 mentions, including a woman who did a 13-hour set on the Sunday during the riot that the rave tent was completely oblivious to. But there's not a whole lot of information about the rave tent. No footage before now. And aside from the stories of a couple of people who were in the rave tent the whole time, not much information to go on. Like, to the point that Podcast 99 would literally just call the rave tent like the mysterious rave tent and talk about it in that way. Like, we don't know what happened in the rave tent, and gave it this kind of mystical, like, what the fuck's going on in that rave tent? Well, Sodom and Gomorrah was going on in that fucking rave tent, apparently. We kind of had that sense from the information we did have, but this documentary does a really great job of showing through footage of the rave tent and the stories that get told about the rave tent that place was hell on earth to be in if you were not high on one or multiple substances. We're informed that some people would just line up naked against the wall with their legs spread to let randos fuck them, which free
That's
love,
one
I
way
guess.
to catch STDs.
I know, it's like, I don't
Plural.
like, if that's what you wanted, I don't want to be like, why did you want that? But also just not a great environment in a festival that's already teeming with sexual assault. People just literally having sex on the floor constantly. Definitely the security guard they interview talks briefly about the rave tent and sounds traumatized by it, which totally would make sense. And Fatboy Slim talks about working the rave tent and a van driving into the rave tent, which that alone is horrifying on an organizational level. If a car is driving through a venue that has people in it that are so high that they are fucking on the ground with no care as to the other people around them, it's a miracle no one got run over. And the van eventually stops, and Fatboy Slim's people are like, the fuck is this? The van door opens and some dude walks out, like zipping up his pants, and in the back of the van is an unconscious underage girl who was just raped by this dude. And that's when Fatboy Slim and his people are like, we have to get out of here as soon as I'm done. And that's the general vibe of the rave tent. Like, just everything at Woodstock 99 is kind of a reflection of what happens when you don't treat people like humans. And the rave tent is a uniquely sinister version of that, because I'm not a raver, but I understand the dance music a little better than I understand the metal and the heavier music that we've been talking about. And plur is a big thing in these circles, peace, love, unity, respect. There's no fucking respect going on here. There's no unity going on here. This is people being as hedonistic as humanly possible because there's no infrastructure to stop them. And like, finding out, it's not really a shock to find out the rave tent was just as fucked up as everything else at Woodstock 99. But like Nick was saying, it's fucked up in a deeply evil way. Like, that's just so disgusting. And it's good that girl was found by someone with half a brain and a sense of morals. Like, I'm really glad that it was one of the actual artists who was like, oh my God, like, imagine if more coked up frat boys found her or something. Like, it's just, and again, imagine if that car had hit people. Like, it's just from like a documentation perspective, it's incredible that we have any footage of that rave tent. And it's incredible that it's footage they were able to show. Like there was some nudity, but nothing like the descriptions that people were giving of what the rave tent was like. So I'm sure there's tapes of this rave tent somewhere that someone impounded because they were just like, no one can see this.
Yeah, no,
This probably ruined careers, ruined lives, ruined people. They're like, we can't show this, but
somebody's probably gone to prison over that.
Yeah.
That rape was definitely one of the ones that was actually reported and prosecuted, if I'm remembering correctly. So like, I'm at least glad for that. But that like a literal like teenage child who was probably just there to go have a good time at Metallica or whatever, just like the documentary does a good job of continually reminding you that like there's a human cost to all of what we're describing. Like there we see very sunburned people, very destroyed people, a destroyed environment, fecal matter everywhere, people covered in shit. Like there's a woman they interview who ends up with trench mouth, and I can't remember if she was episode 1 or episode 2 or episode 3. But
episode 3 is when is when she describes that.
Yeah, getting literal warts on your mouth.
Yeah, if you're going to like when I go to a festival, my baseline requirement is that I don't get horrifically assaulted and I don't end up with diseases from World War I. Like that feels like that shouldn't have to be said. For the historical knowledge, having some of the mystery of the rave tent lifted, I think is important. Like it's good that we know this in this regard so that we can't just blame it all on metal, Limp Bizkit, whatever. This is the vibe and the atmosphere at Woodstock was a festival-wide failing, obviously. It's horrific to sit through and listen to and watch. And it's interesting hearing Fatboy Slim talk about it because he clearly also does not want to remember that this happened. And I felt bad for him having to relive it. I mean, imagine how that girl must feel. But like, he clearly is like, he looks like shell-shocked to have to talk about it.
See, I'm going to jump in and say something. I find my thing, any excuse to dunk on the HBO documentary is a good one, I feel, at this point. I find Fatboy Slim's comments on playing Woodstock 99 a lot more genuine than I do Moby's, rather than him just going, boo-hoo, 7 Dust are higher on the bill than me and they're in bigger letters, wah, wah, boo-hoo, new metal,
like,
wah, wah.
Of course Moby wouldn't care about sexual assault. He was trying to get with Natalie Portman when she was like 14 years old. Like, shut up, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Christ.
It's like, I find Fatboy Slim's entire discussion on this to be a lot more genuine because he was like, I just want to play a good show and entertain people and make them, to use his words, make them love each other. Like, he just genuinely seems like a guy who wanted to put on the best possible show he could. And then somebody does something as fucked up as that to somebody underage.
While driving a car through the venue.
Correction, ambulance,
I still
not
can't
that it
that.
matters.
Like, it's just a whole ball of fucked up. Like, can you imagine being a DJ playing an event in a closed tent and seeing a car coming through it? He probably thought he was gonna die.
I guess with this in mind, are you guys ready for the literal shit stopper?
It's time for episode 3.
I was
can't
gonna
stop
say,
a riot in the 90s.
I was actually gonna call it episode 3, Revenge of the Shit.
That's fitting.
Shit hits the fan.
There's so many crap jokes we could make, literally. So
poop is everywhere at this point, podcast listeners. Imagine being at a Coachella and walking through poop.
I actually forgot to mention this during the whole Bizkit thing. Howard Stern uploaded a clip of him interviewing Durst like a couple weeks before Woodstock 99, and Durst even actually says in that interview, I don't know what they're going to do about the bathroom situation. That's just going to be one huge piss and shit scenario. And then Howard Stern's like, hey, you want to know how you solve this problem? You have at least over 1,000 porta-johns that are very expensive and you order too many of them. which clearly
Yeah.
Cher and Lang did not get that idea, which I almost kind of wish Durst and Howard Stern ran this.
Wow.
Yeah, when Fred Durst and Howard Stern, two noted event planners and general purveyors of common sense, have a better idea than you, it's time to pack it in. You've failed.
Another thing about this documentary is that it just doesn't just focus on Seven Dust, Godsmack, or Megadeth for this day. It just focuses on kind of like the general sense of dread, like, oh God, what's going to happen today?
Yeah, I really liked that this is the point in the documentary where we start quote unquote losing people. There's quite a few of the people they interview that say, oh, the vibes were so heinous that we left on Sunday morning. Or the poor trench mouth girl who's like, I had to get medical attention. It seems like you either left at like 8 a.m. or after like your morning artist that you wanted to see, or you were there blowing shit up at the end. Like there was no in between. There was no one who's like, maybe we'll stick around for Red Hot Chili Peppers. I guess we have time.
No, you're
Ananda
you're either
put it
there
so
or you're
well.
gone.
Ananda
Yeah.
Lewis put it so well. All we have to do is just make it through the Chili Peppers, which if you hate the Chili Peppers, that's probably the most like, oh my God, she's right. Make it through it, please, please. Or if, you dig them casually or just, you're a massive fan, you're like, okay, make it to the end of the Chili Peppers, then we can all go home, except for the surprise headliner, which will they really are at this point in the series kind of going like, oh shit, there's supposed to be this surprise act that's gonna close out Woodstock 99, and there's speculation like whether it's Guns N' Roses coming back, not with Slash and Duff obviously, Pearl Jam potentially playing, the Rolling Stones,
Prince was
Bob
even one of them.
Dylan.
yeah,
Sorry,
like,
what did you
we mentioned
one of them was
Prince.
Bob Dylan for sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
That they say
yeah.
in the doc.
Again, just how genius it is, just drip feeding you more information and just telling the story as it's progressing. And again, that could be considered a flaw of jumping between hours upon hours of just the amount of stuff that's happened, like the way it jumps from, Limp Bizkit going straight to the rave tent, jumping over Rage and Metallica. But it kind of makes sense having it jump from Willie Nelson to Jewel to the Chili Peppers. Kind of makes a lot of sense, just again giving you that overwhelming sense of some bad shit's about to happen, guys, and you're about to be really either enthralled or horrified by what you're about to see.
Yeah, it's important to note that the surprise act never happens. So the surprise act was meant to be a Jimi Hendrix like laser light show tribute, which would have pissed people off even further. But they didn't have the chance to get pissed off by that because they started lighting shit on fire well before that. So that thread, they get into that thread, but people started being really annoyed prior to that. So it was part of the frustration, but that was not the flashpoint. The flashpoint was people started handing out candles to light on fire, which.
So a little bit of background.
Brilliant idea with that, yeah.
This was all Michael Lang's idea. He wanted to have a candlelight vigil during Red Hot Chili Peppers set after Under the Bridge in honor of the victims lost at Columbine. So the cause that this show was all supposed to be for was anti-gun violence. The problem is you're giving away flammable items to a crowd that, again, as we've established, has been price gouged out of food and water. They've been on
various substances.
Yeah,
beer is cheaper than water at this point, so also drunk.
So they were dehydrated, probably sick with all sorts of diseases, high as fuck. And yeah, the last thing you want to do is give this crowd candles. I'm
about to make a really bad joke here to you guys. That's some tight shit right there. That fire burning right there on the plywood. I am not sorry for that. Yeah, so Red Hot Chili Peppers, they come out and play Under the Bridge, which admittedly, that's a pretty beautiful scene in
it is
concept.
like if this had happened at like a Warp Tour or somewhere where there was actual infrastructure, this would have happened fine.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess another notable traumatizing thing that Ananda Lewis has, the way she describes Flea playing this entire show naked is just great. Her and Heather and the one security guard, Kyle, I think it is, those are my three favorites in this documentary. Like anytime
Same.
they just came on screen, I was like, ooh, I gotta pay attention even more now. They're entertaining the hell out of me right now.
I also have to give a shout out to the ABC News reporter. I think it's like I don't remember his last name, but Dave.
Yeah, him. He's one of the best commentators that does, like, he calls Durst out for the entirety of break stuff, but like he's quoting it verbatim almost as if he's into it.
Mm-hmm. I was a big fan of the old woman from Woodstock '69 who tried to get paying customers. Yes, Lisa. Who tried to get paying customers. Yeah. She was from it was very obvious that she was having a major culture clash, and also that she didn't quite understand why people might be pissed off at her suggestion to help pick up trash around a venue that most of the people there would have expected that someone would be paid to do that for them, like most people would.
Yeah, exactly.
But she was sweet. I didn't feel like she meant it. She meant it in a good way, but it's just like, lady, that's just not what this is.
So to kind of tie this into the whole Jimi Hendrix laser light show thing, and this is kind of what gets pinned on for the fires that end up happening. So I don't know whether you can blame Anthony Kiedis for this or not, or try to make him look bad in a certain light. It sounds bad at the moment. Basically, they interviewed the mayor of Rome, New York at that time, and he talks to Anthony Kiedis, who's backstage at this show, and he's like, hey, can you go back into the crowd and, you know, maybe say something to get them to calm down? Which, like, yeah, obviously as a front man, it's your job to work the crowd. And again, it'll sound dickish on paper, but in a way he's kind of right. Like, he just flat out tells him, man, there is nothing I can say to this crowd that'll do anything.
And to his credit, he didn't say anything close to Fred Durst being like, I don't want you to mellow out. I don't know that he tried, but in a way he tried. There's just not much he could have done. People were lighting shit on fire. How do you stop people from lighting shit on fire?
You want to know what you do instead? You give them some, oh God, I can't believe I'm about to make this really bad pun, but you give them some real fire music. I'm not sorry, I'll show myself out.
I have to admit, like this performance of Hendrix's Fire was fire.
Yeah, okay, that's a little bit less puntastic than mine, but yeah,
I still hate both of those. I'm sorry. Well, no.
I don't blame you right now, Haley, not one bit. But like the thing is that, yeah, Hendrix's sister asked them to do a Hendrix cover backstage, and also trying to blame them for playing Fire to begin with. This is off of one of their 80s albums. It's off of Mother's Milk, actually. So yeah, saying that this was just like some spontaneous, like they probably knew how to play the song offhand to begin with, but at the same time, it's like, okay, we're at Woodstock, known for Hendrix playing the Star Spangled Banner, got butchered by Wyclef Jean earlier yesterday. You know what? Let's give him a good Hendrix cover. The documentary should have
covered that in excruciating detail.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
They needed a 40-minute episode just about Wyclef Jean's set, because that one thing that I do think was missing from this documentary before we start talking about a bunch of 20-somethings reenacting Lord of the Flies is there wasn't a whole lot of coverage of the music outside of like the big sets. Like, I want to know what the fuck people were thinking of Jamiroquai. Like, I want to know who showed up to Rusted Root and if they enjoyed it at all, because that set sounded terrible. Who was there for the Brian Setzer Orchestra and bailed on day 2 when they realized what a shit show this thing was? Like, that's the kind of stuff I want to know more about now that I have a lot of knowledge of this event. And the Netflix documentary showed me a lot of things I hadn't seen and didn't know. But now we're at a point where it's like, okay, we need different perspectives here. I want to know how all this shit went down, you know?
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, so this is where we just get to, as Haley mentioned, everything being destroyed. Everything must be set on fire, and it literally looks like a fucking war zone. Like, you're enthralled the entire time, but you're also petrified for these staff members who literally are just there to do their job. But literally on the last day, they don't even get the chance to like take their stuff down or, even try to get out of there. And what they're literally like just almost fleeing for their lives, like as if having something that's Woodstock staff related on was about to get you fucking killed.
This is the part of the documentary that pretty much becomes a horror film in the way that it's edited, just like emotionally, the way like all of the people are describing it. It gets pretty intense.
The footage they have too is terrifying. Like the one that is burned in my head is there's two sequences. There's one where just the sea of bros are bum rushing an ATM bank that's like filmed by a night cam footage is just straight up terrifying. It's like they're on their way to the ATM in the vendor village and they're like, ah, and you're just like, oh God, no, that's bad. That's real bad. And then the one where a couple rioters take down a sound tower and they're fucking lucky no one was under that thing. I thought I was about to watch someone get crushed to death. I was like, oh no, they're not going to show me that. Oh no, they're not, right? And
yeah, I thought
like,
the one dude hanging off of it was going to fall off.
That's what I was thinking too.
I was like, someone's going to fall. Someone's going to like, because again, these people are drunk, high, and God knows what else, and no water, no food in their systems. Like they're being run on spite and weed. And I truly thought like someone's going to roll under this thing and I'm going to watch their head get caved in, or that guy's going to fly and I'm never going to see him again. And the guys who knocked that tower down are fucking lucky that they didn't kill anyone. Honestly, it's watching this footage, it's amazing that not more people died, that it was just the kid who got dehydrated at Metallica. I can't believe it, honestly.
But that's Metallica's fault because they sued Nep's. Fuck you, HBO. Anyway, like this entire sequence, like you are 100% riveted by what's happening. And the fact that we don't, like, I get it, there are a bunch of documentaries that are coming, like the aforementioned Paramount Plus one that's actually being made by the guys who did Podcast 99, but I'm kind of honestly amazed there isn't more footage on YouTube of a lot of the shit that happened at Woodstock 99. Maybe it is because there was some genuinely illegal shit that was seized by the police, or maybe somebody's just got it in a storage locker somewhere. But like, I'm honestly kind of surprised that there isn't more like hand camera footage of the riots, or more just like stuff during sets. The fact that it just lends this the lens of authenticity to it that I really love about this doc.
Same. I think the only they even kind of get into it towards the end of this episode, where like the only possible explanation I can think of for why there isn't just more like wild footage out there is because a lot of the staff had to sign a whole bunch of NDAs. So maybe that kind of means like between that and also a lot of illegal shit happening, most of the only footage you can find is like official footage from like the MTV broadcast, the pay-per-view, etc. But I would love to see more like raw footage down the line.
And I think a huge part of that too is that the news crews that were there fled. Like MTV was truly afraid. The MTV people were truly afraid for their lives, and the people they interview with that bear that out. Dave bailed. that they were interviewing too. A lot of people who would have been on the ground with functioning cameras that we know for sure would have been there, they admitted to leaving because they thought they were going to die. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people with cameras were like, they're beating up anything that looks like it costs money. I have a camera and these people are insane. I'm going. And
Yeah.
I also wouldn't doubt that, like the rave tent, someone had footage of it, looked at it, and was like, this can never see the light of day. And then just buried it like it was a copy of E.T., the Atari game, in a parking lot.
Or, you know, my worst movie of all time, which worst transition possible, because one thing that I know Haley would appreciate if they acknowledged it more, but I think the way they drip feed it and just add this air of really genuinely evil, this genuinely evil undertone that it's just kind of building to, is that Michael Lang's assistant towards the end of this documentary, and this really does leave this entire series on an insanely sour note, kind of like the festival that it's about, that his assistant got a phone call from a mother who found out that her child had been sexually assaulted that weekend. And one of the things that I actually really appreciate, Haley, do you know the song by Korn called Daddy?
Yes.
Okay, so you know kind of where I'm going with this then. I
Right,
really
right.
do appreciate that they got Jonathan Davis, a legit victim of sexual assault, to comment that, you know, no dude should be fucking doing this to a woman. Like, she should just be able to crowd surf just like a guy can. And just how it kind of just builds. Again, the thing that I don't like about the HBO documentary is that it just feels very social justice warrior-y. Again, I say that, you know, I say that as a left-wing guy who hates people who bitch and complain about Star Wars, Marvel, and Lord of the Rings all day on the internet for clicks, but the way it's done here feels more genuine and authentic, and just makes you go like, God, this shit was happening the entire fucking weekend under our goddamn noses. Like, it just makes you feel really disgusted and gross inside in a way that it's like, yeah, like if I had a kid who was going to a festival, I'd be scared for them too if I knew something like this might happen.
Yeah, I think the difference in between the HBO doc and the Netflix one in that regard is that the Netflix one treats everything that happened at Woodstock on the human level. Like, this is a failure to treat people like humans. This is a dehumanizing experience, and people were very dehumanized. HBO treats it with a very clinical lens where it's like, theoretically, we feel XYZ is wrong. And it's like, we have footage that bears out how horrifying this whole thing was. It's like, they have people who are probably experts in some field, but they weren't there, you know, in the HBO documentary. It's on a very theoretical level. In the Netflix one, we have like Heather, who's like, well, that didn't happen to me, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen to other people. And I'm really glad that I can send my daughter off to shows and be reasonably assured that this is not going to happen to her, and this is not something we accept as a culture anymore. Like, there's a world of difference in how you talk about these issues, you know?
And there's no random tangent about Fight Club, which literally didn't even come out until like 3 months after Woodstock 99. Which,
yeah,
one thing that I got Mike to listen to, I'm sure Haley listened to it too, Heather's interview on Podcast 99. Again, she's just fucking cool.
Yes.
She is like the cool mom of her generation.
Okay, kids, I'm gonna drop you off at the Korn concert. Maybe you know what? Fuck it. I'll buy a ticket too. I'll hang out in the back. You all go to the rail. We'll all go get pizza after the show. She's that mom.
If someone hits you in the pit, I'm gonna hit them for you back.
She is fucking cool. Heather, if you ever listen to this, you're fucking cool in my book. I'll buy you I don't even drink anymore. I'll buy you a fucking drink.
To bring it back to the greater point, I get what you're saying. I think it's very clear that all of us view sexual assault as very evil and very disturbing and something that is awful, and that there was a ton of it at Woodstock 99, which is just straight up appalling. But there's a way to talk about these things that gives the necessary gravity to what happens while also centering the people and not, the concept, which I think is kind of the big general problem between the HBO and the Netflix documentary. HBO likes the concept of Woodstock 99, and the Netflix documentary understood the people affected by Woodstock 99.
Yeah, that's a really good summation of why this is clearly the superior of the two. The other reason is, at the end of the day, this has the clearest thesis statement that the problem has always been the infrastructure, and everything else is the result of the infrastructure, and not like the other way around.
Yeah, it's, again, it really does just leave you on this extremely sour note, just dropping this huge bombshell that all of this bullshit was happening to women at a festival that's meant to be about peace and love, and people were just there to genuinely have a good time, or just people like Fatboy Slim who just wanted to put on a good show and, again, to use his words, make people love each other, or a band like Metallica who just want to show people a really good time while playing kick-ass metal music. That
who goes to Jamrock High expecting to be sexually assaulted?
Exactly. It's like, it really does leave you with that bitter taste in your mouth that this could have been so much better than what it actually was. And then just closing it out on that, a few months later, Michael Lang dies after we did this interview with him. As of right now, no plans for another Woodstock. Cut to black. I think that's genius.
Yeah.
Not for lack of trying. They tried to pull off a Woodstock 50, but it was a shit show from the word go, and it got canceled.
Basically the plans
lineup.
Basically the plans for a Woodstock revival, Michael Lang took to his grave.
Pretty much. But I guess just a summarization of all of our thoughts on just this entire series, on who we recommend it to. Just closing thoughts.
Haley, you go first.
So I know I come to this as someone who has listened to every episode except for the one they released like 2 days ago of Podcast 99, who's read God knows how many articles from the time and retrospectively about this event, and has like a weird amount of knowledge in my head about it through other people. This was still a really insightful and interesting documentary, and I learned a lot from it. So I definitely would recommend this to someone who's coming in for the first time. This is going to give you a lot of information, and it's not so surface level that it will leave you confused, but it's surface level enough that if this documentary really interested you and the subject interested you, you have the perfect jumping off point now. It's like if you were watching this and going, oh, wow, I really felt for that poor ambulance driver who seemed like he was ready to just quit 5 hours into this. Yeah, you can find some great Podcast 99 episodes about it. There's other events that had serious issues regarding medical tents and stuff too that you can follow up with. It's a really good jumping off point. And for me, that's what you want out of a documentary. I don't want to learn everything about a subject from a documentary. I want to know the big facts, and I want to visibly see why this happened. So I definitely would recommend this to, I think, anybody with an interest in the subject. I think it's really great. Definitely a huge improvement over the HBO documentary, which I would recommend to no one. And if you were really into this, Podcast 99 is absolutely fantastic. Definitely worth your time. Starts out a little rough because it's three dudes trying to figure out how to make a podcast, but gets really, really good. They also go through every set in excruciating detail, so you can get all your Wyclef Jean hating in. and
Yeah.
maybe understand why we keep joking about a whirlpool.
Yeah. Want me to go next then, Mike?
Yeah, go for it.
Uh, no lie, as bad as this is going to sound, and I'm actually just going to bring this up even, I low-key use Podcast 99 to kind of fall asleep to sometimes on days that I'm working. So, Podcast 99, despite the sketchy content due to the attendees of this festival, yeah, Podcast 99, it's really fucking good. Go check it out. But Trainwreck, though, I really do feel like this is what The Last Dance is to sports documentary miniseries. Trainwreck is to music miniseries. Like, this is absurdly well done. The story is insanely well told for newcomers, like Haley had mentioned. It's not a pure metal bashing hour and a half documentary that again blows the dead corpse of Nirvana and has a Coachella ad at the end of it. It just provides the facts as the event is happening, and you really come to like the people that they're interviewing, the attendees, the staff members, and then you really do hate Cher and Lang for the shit that the literal shit that they put these people through, and then just trying to blame it on elements like Fred Durst. Even it's not even just purely building to Bizkit's show, even, which I massively appreciate. And it's, it kind of does what Podcast 99 does, where it's like, it's not just the new metal bands. Like, a lot of people were there to go see James Brown, a lot of people were there to go see Elvis Costello. To throw Haley a bone, people were there to go see because I have to make a Simpsons reference here, the Brian Seltzer Orchestra. So
look, we could have had a full Zoot Suit riot at Woodstock 99. Nobody had enough foresight. That was the true tragedy of Woodstock 99. This all could have happened while people were well dressed.
Actually,
that's a joke. In case anybody thinks I'm not kidding.
Here's an even better joke. You want to know who should have helped run Woodstock 99? Mr. Burns. He would have just put a huge sunblock over the entire festival grounds. But no, in all seriousness, like, in the way it handles the more serious and I guess more of a greater social concept, the way it just handles all of that is just, it's very smartly done. It doesn't feel heavy-handed or forced or so much like it has an agenda. It just says, hey, we want to tell the story of why this event went so wrong. Here are the facts, and here's the basic Cliff Notes version of it. And I think this is honestly some of the best TV you could watch all year. And really, it gave me a lot of nostalgia seeing a lot of this old footage, like a lot of it showed at least a couple Much Music clips. It showed a lot of MTV clips that I remember from back in the day. So this gets the highest of recommendations for me, easily up there with Stranger Things season 4 and the Pam and Tommy series on Hulu. Go check it out, guys. It's great.
Yeah, that's some pretty high praise as far as like television goes, and I would pretty much agree. What I have to say about this, other than echoing what you two have said already, if you're like an aspiring journalist or anthropologist or just documentarian, I think film schools or journalism majors should really dissect this documentary for the amount of primary sources that are included in this as talking heads, the fact that this doesn't really have an agenda outside of laying out the facts and giving you sort of like the most immersive emotional experience of what it was like at the festival. And then like, kind of like what Nick said, it like, if you're a fan of like, at the very least, the big acts from this, then this is really just a cool a cool piece of nostalgia, getting to relive all of that, like all of this MTV footage and news clips, but also stuff like that hasn't been seen to the public, like the stuff with the rave hanger, and you know, getting to know a little bit more about the behind the scenes. But yeah, this is something I highly recommend. And if you want to know more about Woodstock 99, listen to podcast 99. And if that seems too daunting, you can just wait for the Paramount Plus documentary, which is produced by the podcast 99 people.
Yeah, seriously, go. In all seriousness, really do go look this up, because it is one of the most, again, entertaining might not be the best word, just given how much ick Woodstock 99 has going on in it, but just how fascinating of a subject it is. Like, we cannot recommend it enough. Go look it up. It's really good. But yeah, let's meet back up whenever that comes out.
Oh yeah, I am definitely looking forward to that. But until then, Haley, where can everyone find you online, or not find you?
You can't. Don't. I was in the rave tent. You will never find me. Video footage of me will emerge in 30 years. I am in the Renegade Pop Culture Facebook group. You can always hit me up there if you have burning opinions about the Brian Setzer Orchestra or any of my focuses on random disasters at music festivals.
And Nick, where can everyone find you?
Super Saiyan Death Metal God on Instagram. I am posting album covers, movies, video games, a lot of horror themed content. As well on Twitch, I mod for Catherine Isabel, Canadian actress, Canadian icon in her words, star of classics such as Ginger Snaps and American Mary, as well as the TV shows Hannibal and The Order. Go shoot her a follow. We'll give you some gifted subs in her chat whenever she decides to stream again. She's awesome. And go watch Ginger Snaps.
And you guys can find me on Twitter at Captain K42. You can check out my quick thoughts on letterboxd.com/CoachK42. And you can follow Renegade Pop Culture on Facebook and Twitter at Ren Pop Culture. We're also on YouTube, on Podchaser, on the Banana Meter. Listen to all of our podcasts on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. And last but not least, everything can be found at renegadepopculture.com. Need to escape? So do we. That'll do it for this episode of Renegade Marquee. We will catch you guys later. Peace out.
We met in the summer of love, Woodstock 99.